Imagine this. You are 20 years old, paying your own way, living in London, and finally ready to declare your independence. You do it with ink is small, beautiful sparrow tattooed on your arm. It's a quiet promise to yourself, a badge of freedom. But for your mother, that sparrow isn't a symbol of flight. It's a mark of rebellion, a breach of trust, and a terrifying sign that you're pulling away forever. This is the story of Emily and Margaret Carter, a mother and daughter whose world cracked open over a single tiny tattoo. In the modest, traditional suburbs of Thornton Heath, independence wasn't just about moving out. It was about honoring the sacrifices made by the one person who raised you alone. When Margaret discovers the ink, she doesn't rage. She simply delivers a consequence rooted in the past, in the traditions of a simpler, stricter time. What happens next is a silent, agonizing conflict. It's a scene of unexpected, deeply humiliating discipline that transcends age, forcing Emily to confront the cost of her secret. But this isn't a story about punishment. It's about the terrifying vulnerability of a parent, a fear of being shut out and replaced. It's about a 20-year-old being held accountable for more than just money or rules. She's being held accountable for the health of the relationship itself. Watch as the immediate sting of the old wooden brush gives way to a profound, unspoken understanding that redefines what freedom and family truly mean. Asterisk, the rain never truly stopped in South London. It just paused between sighs. Emily Carter sat on the edge of her narrow bed, tracing the fresh lines of the sparrow tattooed on her arm. The ink was still tender, wrapped in a thin layer of healing balm. But every time she looked at it in the mirror, she felt a quiet surge of pride. It wasn't just a bird. It was a promise to herself. At 20, Emily was studying graphic design at a polytechnic in Croydon, commuting daily on the overground. Her oversized tote bag was stuffed with sketchbooks. Earphones permanently dangled around her neck. Her ash blonde hair, dyed to hide the mousy brown roots her mother always complained about, was pulled into a messy bun. Her silver nose stud caught the gray afternoon light filtering through her bedroom curtains. She lived with her mother, Margaret Carter, in a modest semi-detached house in Thornton Heath. This was a place where garden gnomes still dotted front lawns and neighbors exchanged polite nods over hedges. Margaret, a part-time librarian with a crisp accent and an even crisper sense of propriety, had raised Emily alone since her husband walked out when she was 6. To Maggie, respectability wasn't just a value. It was survival. Tattoos are for sailors and rebels, not respectable young women. She had once said when Emily brought up the idea at 16. Those words had stuck like gum on a pavement. Now, Emily thought she was no longer a child to be scolded into submission. She had saved 120 pounds from her weekend shifts at a vegan cafe in Brixton. She booked an appointment at a clean, well-reviewed studio in Shoreditch and walked out with something permanent, something hers. She hadn't told anyone, not even her best mate, Priya. She wanted to wait until it healed, until she could show it off with confidence. But life, as it often did in London, had other plans. It happened on a Tuesday. Rain drummed against the window as Emily came home late from a studio session, her boots tracking mud onto the hallway tiles. She called out a tired "Mom," but got no reply, assuming Margaret was at her book club. She trudged upstairs, peeled off her soaked denim jacket, and changed into a cropped vest and sweatpants. She was just dabbing ointment on her tattoo when the door creaked open. "Emily, I need to borrow your—" Margaret stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes locked onto the dark outline of the sparrow, just visible above Emily's arm. Silence stretched like taffy. "You got a tattoo," Margaret said. Her voice was flat. Emily froze, ointment tube in hand. "Mom, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you went behind my back? That you spent your hard-earned money on something permanent without even asking?" Margaret's voice rose, sharp as a tea settle's whistle. After everything I taught you about thinking ahead, about respect, you do this. It's not like I got a skull on my face, Emily shot back, defensive. It's small. It's beautiful. It means something to me. To you, maybe, Margaret said coldly. But in this house, we don't make decisions that affect our future without considering those who raised us. She turned toward the door, then paused. Stay in your room. We'll deal with this properly tomorrow. Emily scoffed. What's that supposed to mean? You're not going to ground me. I'm 20. Margaret didn't answer. She just closed the door with a soft, final click that echoed louder than any shout. That night, Emily lay awake, heart pounding. She replayed her mother's expression, not just anger, but hurt. And beneath it, fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of her daughter becoming someone she couldn't understand. Emily rolled onto her side, pressing her palm against the tattoo. It didn't feel like rebellion anymore. It felt like a mistake. The next evening, the house was unnervingly quiet. Margaret had cooked shepherd's pie, Emily's favorite, but neither of them spoke during dinner. After washing up, Margaret dried her hands slowly, then said, "Come to the living room." Emily followed, arms crossed, jaw set. The room was tidy as always. The floral sofa framed photos of Emily as a child, a stack of library books on the coffee table. Margaret sat in the armchair, holding the old wooden hairbrush, the one with the chipped handle. Emily remembered it from childhood spankings after stealing biscuits or skipping homework. Her stomach dropped. "Mom, please," Emily said, voice cracking. "I'm not a kid anymore." "No," Margaret agreed softly. "But you acted like one. You lied. You hid something important. And in this family, that has consequences." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you." "There's no difference when trust is involved," Margaret said, standing. "Come here." Emily hesitated, but something in her mother's eyes, grief, not rage, made her step forward. Before she could protest, Margaret gently but firmly guided her over her knee. Emily's face burned with humiliation. She was a grown woman wearing ripped jeans and Doc Martens. Yet here she was, bent over her mom's lap like she was 12 again. The first stroke landed with a sharp thwack. It stung more from shock than pain, but the real wound was emotional. She bit her lip, refusing to cry. "This isn't about the tattoo," Margaret said, voice trembling. "It's about you thinking I wouldn't understand, that I wouldn't listen." 2 more measured strokes followed, each one precise, restrained, but enough to leave Emily's eyes swimming. She didn't sob, but tears leaked silently onto the floral cushion beneath her. Margaret stopped. She helped Emily up, her hands gentle now. "Look at me." Emily turned, cheeks wet, arms wrapped around herself. "I'm not trying to control you," Margaret whispered. "I'm terrified of you shutting me out. You're all I've got, Em." That broke her. Emily collapsed onto the sofa, finally crying in earnest. Great, heaving sobs that had been building since the tattoo needle first touched her skin. "I just wanted to feel like me," she choked out. "Not your perfect daughter, just me." Margaret sat beside her, pulling her into a hug that smelled of lavender soap and old paper. "You've always been you," she murmured. "Even when you drove me mad with that neon hair at 16, they sat like that for a long time." The rain tapping gently outside. The only sound in the room was their shared breathing. Later, Emily went to her room without a word. But this time, the silence wasn't angry. It was heavy with things unsaid, waiting to be mended. 3 days passed. Emily kept to herself, sketching in her notebook, avoiding eye contact at breakfast. Margaret moved quietly around the house, leaving mugs of tea outside Emily's door and folding her laundry with extra care. On the 4th morning, Emily found a small box wrapped in brown paper on her doormat. Inside was a delicate silver pendant, a sparrow in flight, wings outstretched, crafted with the same intricate lines as her tattoo. Tucked beneath it was a note in her mother's neat handwriting. Freedom doesn't mean flying away. It means choosing where to land. Emily clutched the pendant to her chest, tears welling again, but this time they were warm. That evening, she came downstairs in her usual band t-shirt and jeans, the sparrow pendant gleaming at her throat. Margaret looked up from her book, eyes cautious. "Fits perfectly," Emily said softly, touching the silver bird. Margaret smiled. "A real one, tired but tender. I had it made by a jeweler in Greenwich. Thought you might like something visible." They sat together on the sofa, watching the rain blur the streetlights into golden halos. Emily leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, just like she used to when she was small and scared of thunderstorms. No grand apologies were exchanged. No dramatic declarations. Just two women, mother and daughter, navigating the messy, beautiful space between tradition and change, discipline and love. Ink and understanding. Outside, London carried on. Buses rumbled, neighbors argued over bins, and somewhere in Shoreditch, another young person got their first tattoo. But in this quiet house in Thornton Heath, something far more permanent had been renewed. Not ink, but trust. Before you go, do you think Margaret's decision to use a traditional form of discipline on her adult daughter was justified given the breach of trust? Or was it an overreach? Why? What does Margaret's final gift, the sparrow pendant, symbolize to you about her true feelings regarding Emily's independence?